All right, we're back. John Alite Show. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me. Check out my last shows. Check out the Epstein shows. I'm doing a 3-part series on him. Check out the P. Diddy shows, last week's show, and let's get into it. Andrew, you're back.
Hi, Andrea Giovino back here. Follow me YouTube. I'm on YouTube with my own podcast on Andrea Giovino 1. I'm also on Instagram at Andrea Giovino.
Toby TNT.
That's Toby. That's your son.
Yep.
What's up, brother?
Always good to see you, brother. I do the podcast with her, so you can follow it, Andrea Giovino 1, Toby TNT, and the number 1 on Instagram. And what are we going to talk about today, Johnny?
We got to talk about something that's really important to all of us: what the effects of prison and families, and what they go through.
What it does. What it actually does. I mean, we've all experienced it. I experienced it as the wife, mother of 4 kids with my husband being incarcerated. I saw what my mother went through with my brothers being incarcerated with a lot of time. One brother did 15 years, for like really serious crimes, and how it breaks up the family. It tears the family apart. Even, I was thinking about it.
Well, it made you a criminal.
Made me a criminal.
I mean, that's something that you would never have been a criminal.
I would have never went in the
No.
streets. But I had to go in the streets to support my kids.
To survive.
I had no educational background. I was pulled out of school in the 7th grade. We were considered a criminal family, unfortunately. My parents, they like a lot of them were Italian immigrants over from Italy. And so my dad didn't believe in education. And we strived to go in the streets. I always watched my brothers, my mother in the streets. My mother was running card games. Like I go back with Crazy Joe Gallo was
Right.
in and out of my house. So, we've been in the streets our whole life. And did I want to do that? No. But when my husband went away to support my kids, that was the only thing I knew. I didn't know how to go type. I didn't know how to go do anything else. I knew how to go in the streets, make money. And ultimately it got me arrested. And what it did to my kids, to Toby, you actually became a father at 15, I think it was 15, 16.
Well, I basically helped raise my
He
brother,
helped- he
brother
be-
and sister because there was no man in the household. So basically,
Yeah.
I had to basically step up and help in the household, help at an early age with the bills, raise kids, just due to all of the heartache and the incarceration of not just my father, also my stepdad ended up going to prison.
Your
So
uncles.
my uncles. I mean, the list just goes on and on. It's it's a whole family thing. I mean, my it goes back to my grandfather being involved with Carlo Gambino, Paul Castellano. My father being involved with Tommy Karate. I'm sure
Frank
you know who he
Angie.
is, and Frank Angie. And then you get into my stepfather. He was a heavy hitter. What ends up happening in that life, as you know, you end up dead or in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a terrible existence, and when you unfortunately there's a lot of, and this is why I always talk about the neighborhoods, the inner city where we all grew up, is a lot of these kids, just like myself or your family, we're already thrown into it as kids. So you don't really have the opportunities. You do, but you don't see them. It's not put in front of you. So that's why I'm always talking about giving these kids in the inner city opportunities. And I said it on a couple shows back. I talked about how with all the money this country spends around the world and sending billions of dollars all over, there shouldn't be a ghetto in this
No,
country.
it shouldn't
There
be.
shouldn't be a single mother that has to suffer. There shouldn't be a problem with tax breaks when you have children. It should be automatic. And especially it should be a certain level if you have a tax break as a family, but then it should be a level if you're a single mom, so that they're able to support their kids growing up.
I think also because I didn't have none of my family had education. They didn't push education. I don't know. My dad was old school Italian, and he used to say you learn bad things in school and college. That's where they get into drugs. That's where they get into sex and all of that.
Well, that's kind of true.
It's kind of true, but he didn't want us. He wanted to keep us sheltered. So I think with me, I had a very low self-esteem because I didn't have an education. I didn't know the language on how to speak like the kids that were going to school. And as I've gotten when I got older and I developed into myself, I was more comfortable with the criminal because he spoke the same language. We spoke the same street life. We didn't speak like kids that went to college or even high school. Seventh grade, I didn't even make it to middle school or high school. So, you know,
I mean, it's your comfort level. You said something, years ago there was a Spanish girl. She was getting beat up all the time by her boyfriend. So we went to see the guy, and we threatened the guy. Told him, "You put your hands on her again." One of the guys that stayed with us was his cousin or something. I don't remember, but we threatened him. But then later on, we fixed her up with a banker,
okay.
big money guy, nice guy, treated her like fantastic. And she left him and went
can't-
back to the guy that was
because
beating
she
her
was
up.
comfortable.
That's where she was comfortable.
She was
and
comfortable
we
there.
asked her, she was crying, "Why would you do that?" And she goes, "I just felt so out of place."
Yes,
Because that's not what she's used
I
to.
wasn't what you're used to. Because when I was
Unbelievable.
younger, yes,
And
nice.
as a female, you would know. I
Yes,
don't know.
nice men wanted to take me out, and educated men, professionals. I did not feel comfortable with them. I always felt out of place. I didn't know their language. I didn't know how to speak about if we went to an outing or a function about art, about politics, about anything. Nothing. I wanted to be with the people I was comfortable with. I self-educated myself through the years. In my 20s, back in the day, they had these, before internet, they had Britannica Encyclopedia. I bought myself Britannica encyclopedias, and I self-educated myself. So there's nothing I'm uncomfortable with to speak about.
Well, I'm going to use somebody that's a perfect example of that, and I've used them once in a while. John Gotti, right? And I'm talking about the father
The
now.
father.
Never went to school. He
Right.
didn't like school. He wasn't educated in school. But he became one of the smartest guys I
Yes.
actually knew because he was always reading.
Yes.
Guys could say what they want. The guy was reading books left and right. So he went from not being school educated, might not have known about science or
Right.
chemistry, but he knew about life. He would
Because
read
you crave to learn.
Machiavelli and different
Right.
books and very psychology. And,
You crave it.
yeah,
You
he
crave
did.
it.
He actually was very educated when it came to self-reading, self-read. He was, he really took himself to a college level and beyond, to a
Right.
master's, by just educating himself
Educating
because
himself.
just what he said, he craved it.
Right. You
And
crave
as a
it.
kid, you don't have the patience. You didn't have anybody teaching him. His father was always out gambling,
Right.
so he wasn't around, or he was beating them up when they were kids. So he had a rough upbringing himself. But then later on, as he grew financially and different things, he learned to educate himself.
Even today, I crave it. I love to learn from people. I'll say, I don't understand that. Explain it to me. I want to learn.
Now, you started this out about what this does to families and and growing up. It's all what we are brought up around. All three of us here, what were we brought up around? We were brought up in and around organized crime. We were brought up in and around this lifestyle, this culture, and
Comfortable hearing murder in the house.
comfortable. I was hearing murders from
Murder.
a little kid.
Think about how harsh
a
that
little
is,
kid,
John.
a real little kid. I'm not even talking a teenager.
Like talking about murder, that doesn't go on in a normal
Well,
house.
you know what? I told some different stories when we were sitting in schoolyards and we were kids and we were watching a guy getting beat to death. Then, we seen another guy get killed later on. And then it was just part of a normal repertoire. You would look, and then honestly, you would get used to it.
You think it's normal.
It was no big deal to you. That's crazy, that part.
But in reality, we all know now it's not normal.
No,
it's not normal. It's not right. But we did grow up in and around that. So
Well, that's why one of the biggest things I enjoy doing is when I go out and I talk to kids that have been in trouble.
Yes.
Second chance programs. I like talking to kids at schools and colleges, all that, but that's not really what I really enjoy. I enjoy talking to the troubled kids because we
'Cause
were
they
those
need it.
troubled kids. We
They
know
need it.
what they're thinking because we
Right.
sat there. And, at one occasion when I was talking in Winslow, and I don't remember where I told this, it was 6 kids that got up to walk out, and the pastor started yelling at them. Big, tough guy, very overpowering looking guy, a black guy, was nicest guy, but very stern. And I said, let them walk out. And then before they left, I said, listen, I was you guys. I didn't want to hear it either. I says, I don't get nothing. I'm just trying to save your life before you get killed or you go to jail for life or something. I get it though, because I was doing the same thing you did. And it took me a lot of years to get it right, and I'm just hoping I can get into your ear a little bit. Who knows if that little bit, and then they left, maybe they listen, maybe they're
It's
going to say
planting
no.
the seed.
Yeah.
It's planting the
You know, it's a
seed.
shame because they're not ready to listen at that point of their life.
We could only hope that you get, in the year. Now, earlier you mentioned about the inner cities, and I'm pretty sure you went into Philadelphia, Kensington section not that long ago.
Yeah, I go all the time. Yeah.
So that's
bad.
a total shit show, and I
Yeah.
believe what's going on down there is, it's a political thing. I mean, it's these Democratic politicians are killing that city. In my
Well,
opinion,
yeah, they are. They don't. Well, I said that. Right, that's why I said, K&A Boxing is where I went. The guy John, I got to give him a shout out because he does good work with
Keith
kids,
used
saves
to
his
box
lives.
there. That's
Yeah.
where Keith used to box.
Yeah, so
Keith
K&A,
used to.
yeah.
Keith at 14, 15 years old was taking the train to Kensington.
at the guy Buddy's gym. I don't know the
Oh,
name of
Buddy.
the gym. I don't know the name of the gym.
But he was going into Kensington to box. That's how long
So,
this kid is boxing.
I do a lot of work in Kensington, and Josh remembers we used to have a guy, Dan and Mike, here from Brownsville, and we do a lot of work in Brownsville and do talks. But my biggest problem with all these neighborhoods, whether it's there or whether it's Detroit, it's New Orleans, there's billions, $100 billion went to Iran. Why isn't it going to our kids in our neighborhoods? This is the part that, I want to know why the politicians are not sending it to our kids in these neighborhoods. Why do they have to suffer and die?
I don't know.
Why is it okay that their life doesn't mean anything? And then, and not just there, it's been all, we sent, I don't know how much to Ukraine now. $1 trillion? Who knows? It's unlimited money.
Kensington still hasn't gotten cleaned up.
No, it's terrible.
Kensington, they call it heroin haven.
Yeah.
It's a cultural problem, though. The people literally get used to it down there, but that shouldn't even legally be allowed in the United States. If what goes on in Kensington and some of
It's
the real
actually
bad
very
inner
sad.
cities, it shouldn't even legally be able to happen in this country. And because, like you just said, we're sending billions of dollars over to all of these other countries, but yet, what would $1 billion do in Kensington
also,
for $1 billion?
Toby,
Just $1 billion in Kensington,
They
and
make it
Philadelphia.
very hard for the person that is, taking drugs. It makes it very hard for them to even get into treatment or get into rehab. They put them through so much when they need help, and yet they give other countries so much money, but yet to get a person to get a bed in a rehab, they make these people wait.
Well, when I did that last show there and talk for the kids, and it's on my shows, and I was with Sam. Sam ran for city council. He's an ex-MMA pro fighter. I was sitting in the car waiting for Sam to pull up. There was a little girl, I don't know, maybe 14 years old. She's walking home from school. And behind her are these guys, it looked like Walking Dead. And this girl was so petrified, you could see. And I was thinking to myself, this poor girl does this every morning.
That's
and
horrible.
every afternoon.
And you don't know who's going to grab her.
She's looking, she's looking all around. Her head was on a swivel, and she's looking. And I rolled down my window, and I could tell she was scared. And she ain't gonna trust me either. And I says, "Don't worry, nobody's behind you. I'm watching." But who knows if she's thinking, "Oh, what's this guy?" Because
Right.
they're petrified.
Yeah.
But you imagine she's doing this every day. And you imagine being a parent, you're sending this little girl into this war zone of crime,
It shouldn't
drugs.
be. It shouldn't be.
zombies.
How's this okay?
So for those people that are watching that don't even understand what we're talking about right now, what we're talking about is people walking around the city, cracked out, junked out, walking around like literally zombies, hunched over like something out of a movie that it's not even believable.
And the people that don't know what that area is, our politicians there say that's a drug-free zone.
Yeah.
Drug-free zone. So in other words, they gave up on everybody there, let them die, shoot up for free, do
Yeah.
this and do that. And meanwhile, they're not getting the point that if it's a drug-free zone, you're bringing other criminals into that area. They're going to sell them drugs.
Yes.
They're going to ask them to prostitute for them so they can get high. They're going to ask them
yeah.
to rob people for them. They're going to sell drugs nobody who's high doesn't leave a location to come to a location and go, oh, this is a drug-free zone. I'm going to get a clean needle there, or I'm going to get a crack pipe there. This is ridiculous politicians thinking that somehow that it's a gravy train for them to make money off this nonsense. And it's not helping anybody. You're not further education. You just give up on education on them. You just give up on them having a life. I mean, it's just crazy what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually very, very sad because they all have people that love them and care about them and that have families that, that they're not there's no help for them.
But you can't enable them. So and
No.
that's the problem right now.
Yeah, they want to
enable
enable them.
They're,
Yeah.
the
They think they're doing
politicians-
something good for them.
Yeah.
The politicians and the laws are basically enabling this behavior
are.
to be all over the streets, for the drugs to be all over the streets, for the drug addicts to be bent over all over the streets. While you said earlier, while little kids are walking, going to school, and you got all of this crap going on, while little kids are walking by, this
It's like a futuristic movie. Their
is
bodies
like a
sleeping in the
futuristic
street.
It's like
crazy.
the night
Right
of
in
the
the middle of
Walking
the street.
Dead.
They go around the bodies.
It's
in the
like
middle
the
of the street.
night of the
Yeah.
Walking Dead.
I
It
never,
is.
It's got to be the number one worst area in this
It's
country.
horrible.
I don't think there could be anything
I think
worse
it
than
is.
that.
I think it
Horrible.
is. Crisis in Kensington.
Yeah.
Everybody's talked
You
about
did
it.
that documentary
That
with me, didn't you, with John
documentary-
was shooting? Did you
No,
do
I
that?
wasn't in.
But we met each other there.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
mom
yeah,
was
yeah,
there.
yeah. I was.
Yeah.
I was supported it
Yeah,
behind
yeah.
the scenes because, I'm a firm believer is that from my own knowledge about addiction is that what works is tough love. That's what works, tough love. You cannot enable them because if they're down, the only way they can go up, if you keep giving them the drugs, giving them the needle, putting a roof over their head, making it cushiony for them, they have no reason to change. They have to learn how to change. And change is hard, but it's like you don't clean up the streets to even offer them, go in and have groups to offer them, listen, get clean. We'll put you here. What do you like? I feel everybody's good at something. Everybody has some kind of passion they're good at, whatever it might be. The reason they're taking drugs, they don't feel good about themselves. Somebody that feels good about themselves isn't going to take drugs.
Well, they shouldn't be charging money. It should be free rehabilitation. Just like we got
No, it should
50,000
be
veterans
free.
sleeping on the
Yeah.
street that are alcoholic, drug addicts because everything they went through, PTSD. Where's the help? It should be free. Like I said, you should have armed guards in every school, right? You should have free rehab for anybody that has a
Yes.
drug problem. There shouldn't be a ghetto anywhere. There should be trade schools that are free. There should be opportunity zones that are free. Instead of sending $1 trillion or whatever the hell you sent to Ukraine, instead of sending $100 billion to
Help our own
Iran,
country.
instead of sending it to Yemen and every other country, help these people.
Right.
What do you just give up on their lives
And
they,
it's
they
our
don't
money.
count?
It's taxpayers' money.
And
it's a-
legally, by our constitution, they're not allowed to send our taxpayer money to other countries, and they're
But
doing
they
it.
do.
So, it's a shame that, you're just giving up on family after family, generation after generation. I seen a little kid there. He was about 14, 15, 16 years old, and he was sleeping on the stomach of this other guy. But the other guy wasn't that bad. We interviewed him. Actually, John Alite was with me. And he goes, "You're going to get out?" I go, "Yeah, I got to get out. I got to talk to this guy." And he goes, "I look out for him because I'm scared somebody's going to rape him, this, that." And he's telling the story to me. But the guy wasn't me. He goes, "What am I going to do? This is my life. I'm here my whole life." But this kid, he said, I always tried. I try not to get him not to get high. And he was a decent guy. I don't know what his situation, why, but he was very coherent to have a conversation. And afterwards, I was just shaking my head and go, this is crazy if somebody actually came and seen this.
But even the person that's incarcerated, they should have a program for them and the family for 6 months even, where it's mandatory to have therapy between the family and the person getting out of prison to help them bond back, to help them fit back, to help the kids release their anger in a constructive, normal way. Because when they don't release their anger in a normal, constructive way, they suppress it. And by suppressing it, they drink, they take drugs, they don't know how to say, well, you know what? F you. You left me, you abandoned me. And then you can turn around and say, this is what I was dealt. This is all I knew. They don't have anything like that.
Well, our prison system needs to revamp for families.
They need to
just
do
for
a lot.
families. Years ago there was Luther was running McKean prison, and he had a family day where the families actually come on the grounds.
They should.
Sit there, picnic, and it worked.
Right.
And when he was closing down the solitary confinements, and it was less violence by like sixfold less, and they stopped it. Now who knows what their reasons are, agenda, but. I was witness to it. Luther really made it work. He had ice cream on the common, and you got people crazy that believe, they should be tortured, they should be this, they should that. But when you treat people like animals, when they come back into society, they're going to be animals.
They're going to be animals. Exactly.
A lot of these guys are rehabilitated, are able to rehabilitate. Some aren't.
Yes.
And the ones that aren't, you're going to have to weed them out. And but you need to do something. You just can't give up on everybody and just keep throwing everybody in prison.
No, that's not the answer.
if I was the president of the United States, I'd literally send the military into Kensington. That's how bad it is to clean it up. Listen, well, it's not just Kensington. There's other. I mean, this is what we're around. This is what we see. This is not far from home for us. There's areas in New York. There's other areas throughout other.
But it's only about money. You could clean all these areas. That's why I said there shouldn't be a ghetto anywhere. There should be opportunities. When kids are 5 and 6 years old, they shouldn't. If they got a single parent or no parent, there should be programs for these kids to have opportunities since they're young. Because they're only taught things as they grow, right? They get taught to hate. They get taught to use drugs. They get taught. So if you do things in a positive way and they throw money at it when they're young, and you handle the problem as babies. One of the biggest things I say in school is they got all these crazy classes. They should have a confidence class, a thing about self-confidence.
Yes.
Teach them since they're babies to love themselves.
Yes.
There's a woman. She's gonna know. She's got a tattoo. It's on my Instagram, and I just noticed it yesterday, and it said "fly," and I didn't understand what it meant. It said "first love yourself."
Okay, I like that.
It was one of the coolest tattoos I've seen anybody have. Is first love yourself, and that's something that everybody should learn from. They're 5 years old in schools should be taught nothing but that, to love yourself and to understand that you're a good person, and then go from there.
I think though
Confidence.
too, well, I'll speak for myself. When I was a kid, because I grew up very, very poor, you wear a lot of shame. And when wearing a lot of shame, you're very angry. I was an angry kid. I wanted to fight. I was fearless. I was a tomboy. So, you're right. You have to work on your inner self, your inner child, to develop who you are.
We got to wrap it up. I want to finish. I want to come back on your show and want to do a part of this because we got a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely come on my show.
Sounds good. We look forward to having you on that show, man.
What's your show again? Tell them.
At Andrea Javino and the number 1. You can follow me at Toby TNT and the number 1 on Instagram. You can follow her at Andrea Javino and the number 1 on Instagram. And
Thank you, Jesus. Subscribe to my channel, Andrea Giovino.
Everybody remember, do something positive. Forget the negative. Pass it on. Positive life. God bless everybody. Hit the subscribe
God bless.
button. John
God
Alite.
bless.
Thanks.